Hello everyone, welcome aboard. So again, we welcome all of you to the next lecture of ongoing polity series. And in today's lecture, we are going to talk about the next topic of the polity, which is the preamble of our constitution. So let's get started. What is a preamble? First of all, this preamble is the introduction to our constitution. It is mentioned in the very first pages of the constitution, and it has been taken from the USA. US constitution was the first constitution of the world which used preamble in its constitution. So that is one of the very first question which can come from this topic, that from which constitution we have taken the idea of preamble, that is USA. Then what does it represent? So preamble represents the essence of our constitution. It has been called as identity card of the constitution by an eminent jurist, N.A. Palkhiwala. Please remember, these type of questions are also being asked in the UPSC. So who has called the preamble as identity card of the constitution? The answer is N.A. Palkhiwala. And what can be called as the essence of constitution? Let's say option gives you preamble, fundamental rights, or DPSP. The answer would be the preamble. What it is based on? So it is based on the objective resolution. If you remember our lecture on the making of Indian Constitution, then Jawaharlal Nehru on the 13th December 1946 placed the objective resolution in the Constituent Assembly, and it got unanimously passed by 22nd January. So this preamble reflects the objective resolution proposed by Jawaharlal Nehru. Has it been amended since its inclusion? Yes, it has been amended once by 42nd Amendment Act, which has added 3 words, namely socialist, secular, and integrity to our preamble. Okay, so in the coming slides, we will see what the preamble says and where these new words have been added to the preamble. Before that, let's just take a look what is the literal text of the preamble, and it will be really good for all of you and very informative as well. Just try to by heart it. This is something which is the gist of your constitution. There is no more summarized way of to understand the constitution rather than the preamble itself. So it says, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So here this is telling us what? We the people of India means the source of the constitution, having solemnly resolved to constitute India. We have resolved to create a India. Of what type India, or what type of Indian state? The type of India is, it's a sovereign, it's a socialist state, it's a secular state, it's a democratic state, and it's a republic state. Now, once we the people of India have created India of type sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic, what do we promise to all its citizens, or what is our goal, or the goal of India as a whole? Our goal is justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Fraternity we'll see in the next slide. So justice of what type? We should provide justice of social, economic, and political justice to all its citizens. What type of liberty shall we give to all our citizens? We should provide the liberty of thought, expression, faith, belief, and worship to all our citizens. What type of equality shall we provide to all our citizens? We should provide the equality of status and opportunity to all our citizens. Then, and to promote among them all fraternity. Fraternity stands for a sense of brotherhood, assuring the dignity of the individual as well as unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this day, 26th November 1949, remember guys, the date here is not 26th January 1950. That is the day of the enactment of the Constitution, and 26th November 1949 is the day of the adoption of the Constitution. This is the day when the final draft was signed by all the members of Constituent Assembly. Do hereby adopt, enact, and give ourselves this Constitution. In one of the years, UPSC gave this entire preamble in the question and just placed a blank in this place of November 1949, and you had to pick from the options. So here you can see I told you this is the original preamble, only amended once, which has added 3 words. So the 3 words were secular, socialist, and integrity. So integrity is here in this area, and the previous slide, if you see, where we talk about the type of the nation, there we have added the word 2 words, socialist and secular. The total number of words in the preamble is 88, and we need to understand what these keywords which we have just mentioned here in the bold, they represents us. Okay, so first let's see what are the ingredients of the preamble. What does it tell? So first it tells the source of authority. If you remember, we the people of India, that's what is the source of authority. It's not like some other group of people have just created it and then it has been imposed on us. So the constitution gets its authority from the people itself. Then, as you saw, it describes the nature of the Indian states by telling us or declaring us that we are creating an India of what type? Of sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic in nature. So these are the 5 properties of Indian state which is mentioned in the preamble. Then it tells us the objectives of the constitution, which is justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And in the last section, it tells us about the date of adoption, which is 26 November 1949. Remember, date of adoption. Date of enactment remains 26th January 1950. Let's move ahead and take a look at each and every keyword. So first keyword in our constitution is sovereign. Sovereign means we can take our decisions by our own. There is no authority above us. So India is neither a dependency nor a dominion of any country, but an independent state. If you remember, before 1947, we were a dominion of British Empire. Now we don't have any other decision making authority above us. There is no authority above India. It can take its decision. It is free to conduct its own internal and external affairs. Then its membership to Commonwealth, which is still it is, and United Nations. It's not a limitation. It's just like a grouping which India has joined, and whenever it wants, it can come out of it. Then, as an independent nation, it can also acquire or cede a foreign territory. So these are the qualities which tells us that this is the significance of being a sovereign nation. Prior to independence, we were not sovereign because we were dependent, or the ultimate authority or ultimate say in Indian decisions was with Britain. Let's move to the next word, which is socialist. Okay, so socialist word was not mentioned in the original constitution. As I told you, it has been added by 42nd Amendment Act. Okay, although in the original constitution itself, we have socialist content which reflects clearly in our directive principle of state policy. There will be a lecture completely about DPSP where we'll be looking at all the socialist content which is mentioned in DPSP. What is a socialist content? Socialist content usually talks about economic equality. Okay, socialist content or socialistic ideas usually promote economic equalities. Then the socialism which India has opted is not state socialism. State socialism example is communism, like what China has. That stands for complete control of means of production and wealth by state. Whereas we have opted for democratic socialism. Here we acknowledge the presence of private as well as public industries. Means state will have some means of production as well as private industries will be allowed to thrive. That's what is known as mixed economic model of economy. Democratic socialism aims particularly to end poverty, inequality of opportunity, and ignorance. So the Indian idea of socialism leans towards the Gandhian socialism. Okay, you can see the reflection of Gandhian philosophy again in the DPSP when we'll discuss that chapter. So Indian socialism is called as democratic socialism. It is different than state socialism, which is practiced in Russia or let's say China. We allow existence of private property as well, and we have opted for the model of mixed economy. That is Indian socialism. Then coming to the secularism, again this word was not mentioned in the original constitution. So does that mean that original constitution was not secular? No. Fundamental rights, which gives the right to religious freedom. We'll discuss those in detail in the chapter on fundamental rights. As of now, just remember fundamental rights from Article 25 to 28. They give the right to religious freedom, and they had this idea of secularism already embedded in the constitution. The only thing is we made explicit, or we just said it openly by 42nd Amendment, which was already there present in principle. Indian secularism is a positive concept as against the negative concept of secularism by Western country. In Western country, secularism stands for complete separation of religion from state. Negative concept of secularism is complete separation between religion and state, whereas the positive concept which we have opted for, it gives equal respect and protection to all the religions. Basically, in a negative concept, there is a complete separation, so state, even if it wants, cannot intervene in the religious matters. Whereas in its positive concept, we provide equal respect and protection to all the religions, and if there is something fundamentally wrong about the religious affair, then state has the right to intervene. Okay, so this idea is totally different than the Western secularism concept. Let's move ahead. Next word is democratic. So what is democratic? Democracy is a modern idea, and it stands for the doctrine of popular sovereignty. What it means is, it means that possession of the ultimate people, or the possession of the supreme power, is with the people. So people are the most powerful person in any society. So how do they exercise their power? They exercise it through elections. So there are two types of democracy: direct democracy and indirect democracy. In direct democracy, people have to vote in all the decisions, which is not possible in a large country like India. So we have opted for indirect democracy, where people elect their representatives, and ultimately they are the one who exercise the power on the behalf of the people. Now, indirect democracy has two prevalent systems across the world. One is parliamentary system of democracy, other one is presidential system of democracy, and India has opted for parliamentary system of democracy. Moving ahead, republic, that is the next thing which tells us the nature of Indian state. So what do we mean by that India is a republic? India is a republic means the head of state is elected in India. So who is the head of state in India? It's the president. Prime Minister is the head of government. Always remember, president is the head of state and he is elected. Okay, so is there any state where head of state is not elected? For example, Britain. Britain is a monarchy where the next generation of the queen, they will again become the head of the state. So there is no elected part in the head of the state of the Britain. That's why Britain is not a republic, whereas the head of state in India is elected, and that's why India is a republic. Now, what does it reflect? It tells that if the head of state is elected by the people, directly or indirectly, then the political sovereignty, it is vested in the people rather than in a family, as is the case with the Britain. Then it also tells us that there is absence of any privileged class. So the member of the royal family only can become a head of state in Britain, whereas in India, anybody can become head of the state. And it also tells us that all the public offices, they are open to every citizen, subject to the fulfillment of the eligibility criteria. Okay. Eligibility criteria means the minimum age for, let's say, becoming a president is 35. So you in an age of, let's say, 25 or 26 cannot say that I want to become a president of India. Okay. Moving ahead. Now let's move towards the goal of the constitution. Till now we discussed the type of Indian state, which is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. Now the goals of the constitution is justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. So what is justice? Justice is fair and just and balanced arrangement for everyone, okay, where there is no discrimination. Ideals of justice, what type of justice we have to take? It is social, economic, and political. What is social justice? Social justice is equal treatment without any social discrimination. So like untouchability, discrimination based on the caste or based on the gender. This all is against the doctrine of social justice. So we promised all our citizens the social justice, that they should get equal treatment without any discrimination in the society. What is economic justice? It means that there should not be any discrimination on the basis of class. So class means for rich only, there should not be something which is only available for rich. Equally, it has to be available for rich as well as for the poor. It also means that we should try, or the state should try, to give at least adequate means of livelihood to all the people across the country. Then last one is political justice, means everybody should have equal opportunity in the exercise of power. So the social justice have been provided by the way of fundamental rights in India. Economic justice has been provided by the way of DPSP of India, Directive Principle of the State Policy. Political justice in India has been provided by Article 325 and Article 326. What does these two articles say? 325 says that no one or no law can stop you from contesting an election or for contesting to any public office on the basis of caste, class, race, gender, or place of birth. Okay, so this and plus 326, that says that irrespective of any caste, class, place of birth, gender, every person above the 21 years of age earlier and after 61st amendment 18 years of age now has the right to vote in the election. This is also known as universal adult franchisee, which ensures the political justice in India. And from where we have taken these ideals of the justice, they have been taken from the Russian Revolution in Indian Constitution. The next goal of our constitution is liberty. What does liberty represent? Liberty represents absence of restraints on the activities of individual. So that is a negative connotation of liberty. Positively, it stands for providing opportunities for development of individual personalities. Okay, guys, pay attention to these definitions also. A lot of times you will see UPSC asking you simply the meaning of the terms, and in these only they will make small changes, and based on that the statement might become correct or incorrect. So what type of liberty we have promised to our citizens? Of thought expression, faith, belief, and worship. And how we are trying to provide these type of liberty to our citizens? We are trying to provide this liberty through fundamental rights. One question arises, that are these liberties extreme, that we are totally free and there is no absence in the exercise of our liberty? No, these are not absolute, but these are qualified. They come with the limitations. Example, this is the time of the lockdown during COVID-19 situation. So if you want to go out trying to exercise your right to liberty, then the police will exercise their right of limitations. So they are not absolute, but qualified in nature. Okay. Then just here, this goals which we are discussing, the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. They have been taken up from the French Revolution. In the last slide, I told you the ideals of justice. social, economic, and political. They have been taken from Russian Revolution. Move ahead. Equality. So what type of equality we offer? We have offered in our constitution the equality of status and opportunity. So equality of status means we will not provide any special privilege to any particular section of the society. All the opportunities are available for everyone. Also, it means that adequate opportunities for everyone without any discrimination. So what type of equality we are trying to provide here? We are trying to come up with civic equality, economic equality, and political equality. Civic equality, which is given through fundamental rights, Article 14, right to equality, abolition of untouchability, Article 17, Article 15, which is prohibition of discrimination on certain grounds, Article 16, which is equal opportunities in the matter of public employment. Then economic equalities have been ascertained by directive principle of the state policies. Then political equality has been given through, again, fundamental rights and universal adult franchisee. Moving ahead, fraternity. Fraternity stands for the sense of brotherhood. Okay. And how do we promote fraternity, or how do we ensure fraternity in our India? We have provided by the system of single citizenship. If you remember, like countries like USA has the idea of double citizenship, where a person will be the citizen of United States, as well as if he is living in a state, let's say Texas, then he will be a citizen of Texas as well. Whereas in India, no matter in which state you are living, you are only Indian citizen. Then this is the duty of every Indian to promote a sense of brotherhood in our country, which has been provided in the fundamental duties as well. And this fraternity is subject to two conditions: that it should assure the dignity of the individual plus unity and integrity of the nation. What do we mean by dignity of the individual? That let's say all the boys trying to create their fraternity and then they start discriminating against women or the opposite gender. So that cannot be done, which has been also provided in the fundamental duty, that fraternity has to assure the dignity of a single individual. Also, it has to assure the unity and integrity of the nation. Let us say one particular part of India, there people promote too much of fraternity, but against the idea of entire India. So that will not be allowed. It has to be subject to the unity and integrity of the nation. Okay. So what is the significance of this preamble? Now that we have discussed all the keywords which have been mentioned in the preamble. So this tells us the basic philosophy and the fundamental values of the Constitution. It has been called as Horoscope of the Republic by K. Munshi. Remember that, as I told you, these type of questions are asked again and again. It has been called as Soul of the Constitution by Pandit Thakurdas Bhargava, and Ernest Baker has called it Keynote to the Constitution. Okay. So actually these three statements, they tell us about the significance of the preamble with respect to the Constitution. Now, coming to whether preamble, because in the beginning, as I told you, it is an introduction or a preface to the Constitution. So whether can we consider it as a part of the Constitution, whether it is amendable or not, whether the Parliament has the right to change or edit it or not. So these questions came in front of the Supreme Court, first in the Berubari Union case. It was in 1960s or so. And at that time, Supreme Court decided that it is not a part of the Constitution. Then in 1973, the famous case of Keshwananda Bharati case, Supreme Court gave a judgment that no, preamble is the part of the Constitution. If you're wondering how Supreme Court in the beginning can say no, it is not a part of the Constitution, and how it can say later it is a part of the Constitution. So Supreme Court has the power to review its own judgment, and this power has been mentioned in the Constitution itself. So at any point of time, Supreme Court can review its own judgment and come up with a different one. So till date, after the Keshwananda Bharati case, Preamble stands as a part of the Constitution. If that is the question, you have to go as yes. And because it is a part, it can be amended. But can we amend it completely? Let us say in the Constitution says it, preamble says that we are a secular nation. Can we remove it and make a religious or theocratic nation? No, we cannot change, or Parliament cannot change the basic features of the Constitution. So two things in a nutshell: whether preamble is a part of Constitution, yes. Can it be amended? Yes, except the basic features. The other things can be amended. So that was all for today's lecture on the preamble. Please go through this do's and don'ts again in order to maximize your chances. And stay tuned. We'll be coming up with the next video for you. And thanks a lot for joining. Thank you very much.